Better to solve the United States' economic problems than finding a way to cut $1 trillion in spending. Could it really be that easy? Well, Congressman Ron Paul and Barney Frank seem to think so. They've drafted a letter to President Obama's Commission of Fiscal Responsibility and Reform, outlining ways to alter this country's enormous military budget. And joining me now to discuss this is radio host Adam Kokesh. So, Adam, you are in the military yourself. From your perspective and your experience, is it possible to cut military spending and not jeopardize national security and have enough to support the troops?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's really the point of this letter, and what it gets into is how you can do that. But I want to take a step back for a second and talk about the purpose of this letter, asking the Presidential Commission on Fiscal Responsibility to cut $1 trillion from the military budget, which is certainly doable without compromising national security. I mean, the war in Iraq has already cost us $3.5 trillion. We know that a large chunk of that has been lost to waste, fraud, and abuse. But the idea of President Obama having a commission on fiscal responsibility is kind of like the mafia having a commission on nonviolent communications, or the KKK having a commission on racial harmony, or McDonald's having a commission on cow welfare. The idea is absurd to begin with.
So I don't know if you got a chance then to kind of see President Obama's speech in Ohio today. I'm sure you have some thoughts on that. And even in that speech, and he said this over and over again, that one of his biggest priorities was to cut the budget deficit. You know, I don't know how you feel about that, but now you have this letter from a Republican and a Democrat, and it seems like people from both sides of the aisle are actually agreeing that maybe the first logical place to cut is the military budget. Right now it only has 10 signatories. Do you think it will actually get a lot of support?
Well, I'm really glad that this is being demonstrated to be a nonpartisan issue. It's not something that falls among left-right ideologues, but really rather along whether you believe in fiscal responsibility in government or not. Clearly, the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about has grown completely out of control. And this is something that Ron Paul has championed for decades, and it's great to see that he is finding colleagues on the other side of the aisle who, like Barney Frank, aren't really challenging the fiscal issues underneath the Federal Reserve and how we fund wars through inflation in the first place. But it's certainly exciting to see that we have, one reason to count Barney Frank slightly less annoying. And I really do respect him for this. And I respect, all the members of Congress that are standing up to that military-industrial complex. And remember, President Eisenhower originally wanted to call it the military-industrial congressional complex. And I think the paradigm has shifted enough that members of Congress are able to take a bold position like this and stand behind it. And right now it has 10 co-signers, which is what I would expect for a letter like this for immediate co-sponsors. You're going to get Dennis Kucinich. You're going to get a handful of other liberal Democrats, some small government progressive green types. And then you're going to get a handful of honest conservatives. You're going to get Congressman Walter Jones. You're going to get a handful like that. So 10 is what I'd expect. But I think we're going to see. It get a little bit more support. I hope it gets to a critical mass there in Congress and builds a coalition that's going to do something to challenge military spending. But before, the next few election cycles, I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, it's interesting because the last guest I kind of interviewed on the topic said sort of the same thing, that for some congressmen, it's kind of, politically for them to sign on to something that might look like they're jeopardizing national security might not be so good. But Adam, I want to ask you, President Obama repeatedly says, as I mentioned before, that he wants to cut the budget deficit. I'll let you jump right in right after I ask the question. And then he doesn't do anything. And, you see Defense Secretary Gates say that the military budget still needs to grow, maybe not as fast as they had initially planned, but it still needs to grow. But then nothing happens. Why?
Well, that's because of the entrenchment of the military-industrial complex, the corruption of that, the way that over the years it has influenced the decision to locate military supplier manufacturers spread out over every single district, so that every congressman, at least as many as possible, are getting money from that there are bases in every district, so every congressman has constituents that are dependent on commerce that is based around a military base, things like that. But what I was going to interject with was that the reason this is possible, and that at least in this day and age, you can get 10 co-signers right away, is that the paradigm has shifted, that people recognize inherently now, seeing the waste, fraud, and abuse, hearing story after story about how money is being just hissed into the sand all over the Middle East, all over the world, 700 plus bases, over 150 countries worldwide. Of course you can cut the military budget without even coming close to compromising national security. And that is the major shift. And I think that's really why this is happening. And in the long run, I'm certainly hopeful, because I think that shift and that trend will continue.
Right. And you mentioned kind of there that there are so many military bases across the world, and maybe more Americans are seeing that maybe some of these aren't really that necessary for national security. And in that letter, they said, you know, we'd like to cut a lot of Cold War era policies and programs. So perhaps some of these bases could be cut. Another thing that they pointed out was contract spending. But the interesting thing is, it seems like these days the military is outsourcing so much that, do you think that is also a possibility when it comes to cutting the military budget, Adam?
Oh, definitely. Outsourcing is just another part of the procedure of the military-industrial complex. It brings other companies in. But, you know, it's interesting that you point out this aspect of saying that we have all this Cold War spending, Cold War mentality, weapon systems, things like that, that we're still spending money on the maintenance, repair, and replacement of parts for, things like that. It's just really obvious that we don't need. What would be really exciting is when we can get members of Congress like Barney Frank and other Democrats that have signed on to this letter to reach across the aisle to someone like Ron Paul when it comes to going back to, say, Depression era, FDR era, New Deal, New Society type social programs that clearly aren't working either and are also fraught with waste, fraud, and abuse. But you know what? I really believe that the public sentiment is shifting on those issues too, and that's going to be really exciting. I think that's going to be the next shoe to fall, is that we can look back over the last 100 years of American history, the development of modern big government, and say a lot of these programs are simply just outdated and need to be cut.
Yeah, one step at a time. It'll be interesting to see how many people actually sign on to that letter. That was radio host Adam Kokes joining me from Santa Fe, New Mexico.